Hello, welcome back to my channel, and here we're going to talk about lesson planning under the new normal. So this is already part 2, so in case you missed part 1, all you have to do is to click on the upper right side portion, posted there a link of the part 1 of the lesson planning under the new normal. So this PowerPoint presentation is also, we will also be giving out this PowerPoint presentation to everyone. All you have to do is to check on the description box. So you can see it down below and just go ahead and fill up the form again so that you'll be able to receive this free PowerPoint presentation. Once again, our discussion will be based from the issued memorandum by our Undersecretary of Curriculum and Instruction, Undersecretary Diosdado M. San Antonio. So without further ado, in order for you to receive this PowerPoint presentation, all you have to do is to go ahead and subscribe, click like, don't forget to do that, and then you may also comment in the comment section so that I will know exactly where to send the PowerPoint presentation, and never forget to fill up the link in the description box. So we are doing this because we wanted to help our teachers really disseminate the information to as many people as they can, and we'll be able to really disseminate this important memorandum issued by our beloved Undersecretary Diosdado M. San Antonio. Alright, so let's go ahead. Alright, so our discussion will focus on the following: the definition and purpose of the individual learning monitoring plan. And then number 2, we'll also talk about the utilization of the individual learning monitoring plan. So we will now proceed to its uses and how it should be used. Then we will discuss the different parts of the individual learning monitoring plan. And number 4, we'll also talk about the important reminders in its use. And then we'll proceed to the discussion of the sample template. So in this PowerPoint presentation, we will also be sending to you a Microsoft Word template. There is already a sample in the memorandum. There is no sample yet. So we have created a sample for you, and at the same time, we will be sending you a Microsoft Word format of the sample so that you can add, and then you can just go ahead and type in immediately the information that you need. So we are doing this again to thank our beloved subscribers and followers of this channel. Thank you so much for always following the channel and for spreading the good vibes of education and learning to all teachers. Alright, so let's proceed to the definition and purpose. The purpose of the individual learning monitoring plan is to monitor the progress of the learners who lag behind, as shown by the results of their formative and summative assessments. So in short, the purpose of this individual learning monitoring plan is for us to really monitor and to give importance to those students who are having some problems under the new normal now. So imagine this, before it's face-to-face, there are students that are still lagging behind. So it's very important for us to really take care of these students. So the form is actually for them, right? So it serves also as a record keeping of all the intervention strategies implemented for the learners. Now it's very important that we have something to protect ourselves, especially teachers, when there is a lot of stigma when we fail our learners. So, this form is actually a form of protection for all of us, because we will be asked, what did you do in order for you to really help the students when they are failing and when they have struggles? So this serves as a record keeping of all the interventions you have done. So when I was a school principal, I always tell my teachers before that there should be a record keeping of all the interventions that you have done, the home visitation, if you have provided them differentiated instruction, what are these strategies that you have implemented. All of this should be recorded, including your conversations with the parents, all the feedback. So you need to have a record keeping of all of this. Okay, so all these things are our means to really, put everything in one place. Okay, so this is a record keeping. Number 3, it's designed to show if the learner has already shown mastery. Alright, number 3, it's designed to show if the learner has already shown mastery, significant progress, or insignificant progress. So we need to focus also on what the learner is already learning as of the moment. So this is also one of the reasons why we need to do this, because as a teacher, we need to keep track if our learners are really learning. So we will find out later on that just just to tell you in advance that this is only for those who are lagging behind. But it is also our means to know if this child has already reached mastery, significant progress, or still insignificant progress. And let me just tell everyone that we need to be really honest in doing this form, because if we don't do that, then the idea of mass promotion will be there again. Okay, so the reason for that is because if we don't take this seriously, if we just fill up this form and don't mind really the real situation of the learner, or if we just don't fill up this form just because we don't want to, we don't like the hassle that comes with it, then the end result is that our learners will eventually just pass without even experiencing the needed intervention that they need to receive. So I think this is where our honesty as a teacher really comes in, right? So let's proceed. So what is the utilization of the individual learning monitoring plan? So how will it be utilized, right? So it will serve as a feedback data for learners who are provided with intervention strategies. So all the intervention again are placed there, right? And it is a feedback data. So we will see what are the things that you have done and what is the progress of the learner, what is the feedback from the parents. All of this information are placed there. Then B, provide mechanism of support to learners who are lagging as manifested by the results of the formative and summative assessments, which may be gathered through their portfolio collected samples of learning outputs. So since most of the time we'll be implementing modular learning, as the statement of our Undersecretary Nepomuceno, he said the backbone of distance learning is really modular distance learning, because of majority of the people, of the learners, are really going for modular approach. So the thing here is that even if you are going for blended learning, the modular approach is still there. So they will still be given the modules. So the purpose of online instruction, TV and radio broadcast is really to supplement the modular distance learning approach. So the thing is, under modular, they will be providing us with outputs, and this will be called a portfolio of their learning outputs. So this will be your basis for judging if the child should be monitored carefully. So if the child should be monitored carefully, then the teacher should create an individual learning monitoring plan for that child. And that is when the child has manifested problems in the results of their formative and summative assessment. So the teacher could not say it by just looking at the child. There should be a manifestation in the results of the formative and summative assessments. Right? So let's proceed. Letter C. Make the parents and guardians aware of the academic progress of their children and encourage them to strengthen their involvement in guiding and supervising the learning of their learning outputs. Now, this is very important. When we have a strong communication with the parents, we tap to the power of the parents to influence the child's learning experience. But this could be a double-edged sword, because there are parents who are sometimes, not all parents though, but there are parents who could be too harsh to the learner, and we need to always protect the child. Okay? We have a child protection policy, so we should always talk to the learners, talk to the parents regarding this one, that the child should be protected from any emotional and physical trauma, especially in a pandemic like this, right? So this is where our communication comes in, okay? And at the same time, the progress in terms of their learning should be communicated carefully to the parents. So when we communicate with the parents regarding this one, then therefore they can really help us improve the learner's progress. Okay, so the document here is our means of showing to the parents that this is the progress of their child, these are the difficulties, and how can we help the child, right? So we have already a document, a repository that we can show to the parents regarding the difficulties of and struggles of their child and of our learner. Okay, so I can very much relate to this because as a school principal, I have been doing this innovation, although just a similar form. I have crafted a similar form for my teachers before. So this is very effective. Okay, the idea is really to give feedback to the parents, at the same time, give feedback also to the teachers, and you also have a monitoring tool to understand how did the teachers really put on the effort to do some intervention strategies for learners who are struggling. It's very important that we also do some intervention and record this intervention to those who really need it. Okay? Because there are learners who are really good at learning. Perhaps in this new normal, they can do it on their own. But we cannot deny the fact that there will be learners, and a lot of them will be struggling under this new normal, under this new framework. So this document will be of so much use, okay, both for teachers, parents, and for learners, right? So let's proceed. Letter D. Help decide on the effectiveness of the learning modality adapted for the learner and the possible modifications, adjustments that should be provided to improve the learner's performance. Okay, so this is very important because when we conduct our own intervention and when we implement different learning modalities, we should try to get to know if that approach is effective. Okay, so if it's not, we need to explore other modalities at the same time. Or since the backbone of the distance learning modalities is the modular approach, we need to ask ourselves, what are the possible other alternative modalities that we can supplement with the current modality? Guide teachers in adjusting the learning content and tasks based on the characteristics, cognitive ability, readiness, interest, and profile of the learner. So remember, differentiated instruction is now more important than ever. Okay, so we need to adjust our instruction based on the characteristic, cognitive ability, and readiness and interest of the learner. Okay, so we need to adjust it. So at the same time, this form will be very useful in helping us decide if our strategies and approach for a specific learner is effective or not. So what are the parts of the individual learning monitoring plan? So it's actually a very simple form, yet very effective. So let's look at the parts first and discuss each. Parts of the individual learning monitoring plan. So first of all, we have the learner's needs. So this time we will write down and the gaps between the required knowledge, skills, attitudes described in the learning standard and the current status of the learner as evidenced by the assessment results. These are the areas where the learner need to improve in a form of intervention to help them meet the required learning competencies. So as you will see later on in our sample, I have created a sample for all of us. So you will see there that I have based my learner need based on the competency. I've indicated the competency at the same time for your reference, and I've indicated in what part of that competency is the child having some problems. So you need to be very specific. As much as possible, being specific in this part will give way, is very important because since the document will be shown to the parents, will be shown to the learner, or even to the community, so that the community can work together to help the child address these needs. If we do this, we are very specific at the same time with our learners' needs, we can empower others in the community to help us and to help the child understand that learning competency more. So let's proceed to the next. We have intervention strategy. So The beauty of this form of the issuance of our Undersecretary San Antonio is that he has also provided us with sample intervention strategies, which I think is really very effective and which can be a very good, reference for all of us. So, what are intervention strategies? It is a program or set of steps to help learners improve at areas they struggle with. Intervention strategies may be any of the following form but not limited to. So, take note of that. It's not limited to the following. So you can add more. You can even add interventions that has been done by the parents, done by the teachers, or in the community. So examples of this are extending time of task completion. So did you extend the deadline? This is very common for us teachers. Like when we extend the deadline for our learners, just to give them more time to really think and to focus. Okay, but sometimes most of them are just procrastinating. So we need to be careful of this. Okay, so next is adjusting the level of difficulty of task. So there are certain tasks that we give, and do we adjust the difficulty? Just be careful with this. Take note that you need to adjust level of difficulty, but not to the point that the child will miss the norm competency. So you are just doing this to scaffold towards the harder task. So it's like you're extending it and then adjusting the level of difficulty as of the moment, but at the same time scaffolding it to the point that the child will be able to reach the desired competency. Okay? And it's like a form of spiral progression. Okay? And then providing guided activities. So with you as the guide, you'll be specifically, even through phone if you're using distance learning, or you have a special online distance learning class with the child, you meet at Google Meet or in Zoom, just to provide guided activities with the child in order for the child to really grasp the concept that you want him or her to learn. You also have a supervised time with the facilitator. So you might have a session wherein the parent is the one facilitating, or any para teacher will come there, someone close to the child, and then you'll be supervising it and listening to what they are doing. So this is also a form of intervention. And another one which I really like is giving a sample prototype of learning outputs. Let's say, for example, you wanted the child to answer this one, and then once he answers it, he cannot do it. So what you do is that you provide another set of example which is not similar to the assignment, and then give the answers already to that sample. And then the child will see step by step what has been done, and all he has to do is to follow those steps. But he will answer it in a different set of similar problems. So this is really a very good, way to really give intervention to the child, because the child will be having a good grasp of what is really the correct way to answer. And in our sample later on, I will show you how to do this intervention strategies. All right. Monitoring date. So this refers to the date when the teacher has evaluated the results of the learner's assessment after a sufficient time of implementing the intervention strategy. So take note of this. The monitoring date is the date wherein you have already done the intervention strategies, and then you conducted another set of either formative or summative examinations. You might put there a date wherein you have noticed that the child is struggling. No, you need to do the intervention first and then conduct a assessment. Could be a form of a formative or a summative assessment, and then that's where you put the monitoring date. Okay, so I hope that's very clear, because that has been stated here in the memorandum. So assessment can be done through how? Number one, portfolios. Okay, so portfolio could be in different forms, like it is a collection of learners' output. So that includes written work, products. Products could be any projects that they have done, a research paper perhaps. So any forms of creative output from the learners. Written work is like a test. Okay, so just like the conventional one. In this case, written work could be a form of a Google form examination or a Quizlet application that you have provided with the learner, and then the results of that is in a form of a written work, because there will be less paper in this sense. But if it's a written work in a modular approach, it could also be the worksheets that has been attached to the modules in which they have submitted to the teacher So this is still a form of written work. So performance evaluated using rubrics. So this is one of the things that is very hard to do under the new normal. However, this is an acceptable portfolio. So it could be that you have a periodic online class with the learner, and then you ask them to perform, have a speech, or have it recorded, and then you have a specific rubrics to judge the learner's performance. So that is now a performance evaluated using a rubric. Right? So another form of portfolio could be testimonies of parents and guardians or facilitators. So you can have this, this could be a form of assessment for you to judge if the learner is already really learning at this point. Alright, so let's proceed now to the learner status. So this refers to how well the student learns as a result of the teaching learning process of the learning delivery modality that he has chosen. So it is determined after the assessment of the learning and completion of the sufficient and appropriate intervention strategies. So this actually match with the monitoring date. So you will fill up the learning status once you have, number 1, conducted an intervention. Number 2, you have already performed some formative or summative assessment. So what are the different learning status? Number 1, it's what we call insignificant progress. This refers to a status where a learner did not meet expectations of the learning standards and receive a grade of 75 and below, meaning it's a failing grade for the first quarter and did not improve performance in the succeeding quarters. So let me take note, the quarter here is just an example. So perhaps if the child still fails, despite the he still has a failing grade for his summative or a formative assessment, you can check insignificant progress if that's the case. Okay, and then we'll have significant progress. It refers to a status where a learner has significantly improved performance after the provision of intervention. So after you have provided intervention strategies, the learner already meets the minimum learning standards as manifested by the increase of his or her assessment results. So for example, before his grade was failing and now he is not already failing, so it's maybe perhaps between 75 to 79 grade or the similar level for the formative assessment. So then the child could be tagged as significant progress. So all you have to do is to check on this part. Okay, so next is that the mastery level. So refers to a status where a learner reach a level of mastery after provision of intervention strategies by meeting learning standards as manifested by an increase in assessment result. So in this case, from failing grade, the child already reached a grade which is really very satisfactory at this point, or fairly satisfactory at this point. So for example, from did not meet expectations or fail, the child has already received a fairly satisfactory or satisfactory grade. So that is around 80 to 84 or 85 to 89 because of your intervention. Okay, so you have to check mastery if this is the case. Alright, so let's proceed to the important reminders. The form is only for learners who are not showing progress in meeting the required learning competencies. So teachers are advised to prepare the individual monitoring plan and communicate regularly through home visitation or other means of communication if face-to-face is not viable. So let me just take note that this form is not for all learners. So it is only for those who are really lagging behind. So those who are manifesting failing grade in their formative and summative assessment. So, but take note of this, we need to be really honest in filling this up because as we have seen before, this could easily translate into a mass promotion if we just allow our learners to pass without having them experience the needed intervention. Okay, so I can't emphasize this enough because our honesty regarding this one is very much important. If the teacher will just say, right, I don't want to do this because it's really quite a hassle and our principal is really angry if I create a... There are times like this, no? The principal will say, why is there a child who is failing? Right? And, to avoid the hassle, we should not as school leaders, we should not put some stigma into something that the teacher will actually, this is additional work for our teachers. We need to understand that. Okay, so, but to be honest with you, part of our responsibility is really to ensure that the child is really learning. So we want all of them to pass, but we cannot pass them if in reality they didn't really achieve the learning competency. So it will be really a struggle because the child, let's say for example, all teachers will really pass just all the learners, and when they go to the workplace, that will actually come back to all of us. Okay, so we need to understand that right now we need to be really honest in filling up this form and in creating this form. So if the child really needs help, please, let's really create an individual learning monitoring plan for this child. You will not know how much of a great impact you will have to the child's future. Alright, so we will now proceed to the sample. So I have created a sample for everyone. This is a sample for science. The learning area is science. So we see there the name Juan de la Cruz. He is grade 7. And the competency, I have placed a open and close parenthesis there. So the competency describes the components of a scientific investigation. So that is the competency or the milk. That is already under the most essential learning competency. And difficulties in designing specific steps for his investigation based on the given science problem. So his problem is really designing the specific steps. So as you can see, we are very specific in this part. And then what strategy did we create? So we pattern our strategy based on the issuance of Undersecretary San Antonio. So we provided a prototype of learning output specific steps to different science problem were given. This serves as a reference to one to craft his own investigation. So let me just take note that you can actually add more learning competencies here. I will be providing you with a Microsoft Word format of this. I'll be sending it to you. So, and also the issuance for your reference. So all you have to do is to type here and here for additional learning competencies or any portion of the competencies that you need to write here if there are more difficulties. So if it's another competency under science, you can write here the competency perhaps. So for the reference of everyone, including the teachers, including the parents, I would suggest that you write the root competency so that they can trace it up. If there's a code, then go ahead and write it down. Right? So the intervention strategies that you would want to provide, you write it here. You can choose among the one provided by Undersecretary San Antonio's memorandum, and then you need to write the monitoring date. So if it shows significant progress, again, when you write the monitoring date, you should have done two things already. Number one, you have already done the intervention you have stated here, and then number two, you have done your assessment already. And then this one, you just have to tag. Okay, so if you've made significant progress, you've tagged this one, then the status is that learning is making significant progress. So continue with the learning plan. So this is the purpose of this one here for your reference. Okay, so if you tag insignificant progress, learner is not making significant progress in a timely manner, intervention strategies need to be revised. So you need to fill up another one here. You just have to type, and then what is now your new intervention strategy that you have done. Okay, and then if it shows mastery, then learning is reached mastery of the competencies in learning plan. So you don't need to do anything anymore. Perhaps you can just have it for safekeeping. But every time there is another learning competency that the child is experiencing, because as we all know, we will be delivering another competency another week, another set of competency for every week. Although there are now, at least 1 or 2 competencies per week because of the we have narrowed down the competency from 15,000 to 5,000 competencies. Imagine that. So there are only very small competencies now. It has been reduced to the most essential competencies. So feel free to add more. So the form is really one form for each child. So if you have one child here, this form is exclusively for that child. So you cannot add another. So if you want to add another one, you just have to fill up another form. Fill another form for another child. So what I could imagine with this is, imagine when you go to the doctor, right? the secretary will always ask you, "Ma'am, sir, do you have a record here in our clinic?" So if you say yes, then the nurse will actually pull out your record. So it's like that. So it's our means and repository of finding out if the child, for a specific child, what are the interventions that has been done, and what is the collective difficulties, learners' needs, or gaps that the child is currently experiencing, right? So, okay, and it's very important also, additional reminders to our school leaders: do not put some stigma for our teachers who will be filling up this form. It doesn't mean that they have many individual learning monitoring plan that they are not good teachers. All right, so that's very important for us to take note. Instead, let's encourage our teachers to craft as many individual learning monitoring plan as they can. You know why? Because the more they create this, the more they will do more intervention strategies. And if they will just go ahead and say, "Sir, I do not have any learners that are struggling," right? Me personally, I will really doubt that, because there are, even if I've reached the doctorate degree already, I'm still learning, and honestly, I still have difficulties in things that I'm currently learning, right? So I don't really believe that all learners are perfect. So even in a face-to-face scenario, learners are struggling. How much more in a distance learning modality that we'll be implementing now, right? So again, encourage your teachers to craft more individual learning monitoring plan, and in this way, we'll be able to help more learners become the best version of themselves and really have a good learning experience even under this pandemic, right? So thank you so much for tuning in, and again, all you have to do for you to download this PowerPoint presentation is for you to finish the whole video. That's very important, because you might have a PowerPoint presentation, but there might be struggles in how you will discuss it. So have really take some time to listen to our discussion. You can do other things while listening to it, and I will know actually if you have watched the whole video. So please go ahead and watch this whole video, and don't forget to share this video to other teachers, so that we'll be able to really help the educators out there improve their craft in teaching, right? So again, the link, we can see the link here, and at the same time you can click on the video description, and I have a Google form link there. All you have to do is to click on that, and then you'll be redirected to a form. The PowerPoint presentation, you might receive it 2 to 3 days after, because we have a lot of followers, and there is a lot of demand from our viewers. So we can only send 50 emails per day, right? So to avoid the spam, also our limitations is that we cannot send a lot of emails in a day, so we can only accommodate 50 teachers in a day.